Have guitar tabs ever done this to you? Wrong notes, wrong chord, wrong key? Yeah, same here. The solution to this problem that people tend to have with tabs is actually really easy to solve. Learn the song by ear. That's why today I'm going to show you cool, quick methods on how to do this quickly and easily. I promise you, you'll never go back to poor tabs or weird tutorials ever again. To start off, I thought it'd be nice to share a little bit of backstory on how I started learning by ear, what really motivated me to do it, and why it's my go-to method for learning any song. And trust me on this is the only way you can learn a song exactly, line by line, without missing anything at all, getting it as close to the original as possible. So when I was about 14, I picked up the electric guitar, and like most other people who are self-taught, I used tabs and tutorials to work out the songs I like. But at least in my experience of that, there was one big problem. I'm Polish and I really wanted to learn great Polish rock tracks from the 1980s. You might be thinking, what Polish rock bands, what Polish rock songs, do they even exist? But the answer is yes, they do. And the reason why you probably haven't heard of them is because of something called the Iron Curtain. It was kind of just stuck where it was in Poland. But going back to tabs, whenever I searched for a tab, tutorial or cover, they were just devastatingly wrong. And I'm not saying just a small key change or a couple of notes that are off. It was almost unrecognizable to what was actually being played on the original track. Just imagine you're a beginner, you've learnt one of your songs from a tutorial, but then it turns out when you try to play along with the original that it's just all wrong and you have to change the key, change notes, and it just confuses your beginner mind so much. And after going through something like that, you realize that the only reliable source to learn from is the original track itself. And if there's no solid guide or tutorial online on how to do it, you've just got to rely on your own ear. That's why it's so important to train yourself to do this, because then you're not dependent on anyone apart from yourself. You'll thank me later. Right, when you sit down with a track and you start trying to learn to play by ear, you might come across your first problem. How do you hear the guitar when there's delay, multiple guitars, some weird stereo? To be honest, when it's that complicated, there's not all that much you can do. But I'm still going to show you a solid method to get down most guitar lines where it isn't that complicated. Don't worry though, later on we will get on to how to make it much easier and even isolate the guitar in DAWs and use tricks to make it even clearer. Okay, here's the first step you want to know when learning by ear for the first time. You're probably going to want to get down a guitar melody, like a riff or an intro. And for that, this is my trick. You listen to it multiple times, not too long a fragment. Try to memorize it. Try even singing it in your head or out loud if you prefer. And then get it down on the guitar. I'll give it a go to show you how that looks. Right, we've got the melody. Da na na, da na na, da 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 do. Now we want to get it down on the guitar. No. Yeah, there we go. No. That's the first part. Da na na. That's the second phrase of the melody. So, second phrase. Da na na. Da na na. Link them together now. Kind of. Yay! So yeah, that's a really simple riff, but if you want this method in 3 keywords, it's listen, remember, and then find. Listen to the track slowly for the notes, remember what they are so you can sing it back in your head, and then find those notes or fish them out on the fretboard. After that, all you want to do is repeat it so you can train your muscle memory when you're playing. And just to confirm that you're doing the right thing, at some point, maybe play it with the track. But then that gets us onto another problem. What if you want to learn a solo and the guitarist is playing at light speed? Well, all you really need to do is just slow it down. You can do that easily on YouTube, press the cog, find the custom slider to find the ideal speed that works for you. And then in the same way like I was working through this riff, you can do almost any solo. It really can help if you know some pentatonic shapes already, but at least in my experience, I knew none at all and I still managed. So with most solos in popular music tracks, you'll really be fine unless it's actually Yinghui Maelstrom. Okay, now it's time for the fun part, and if all that learning from YouTube stuff just feels a bit ancient and doesn't really work too well with you, this might be your solution. Now we're going to step into the wide world of DAWs and stem splitting. At first, you might be asking, what is a stem? What is stem splitting? Well, in tracks, you've got drums, vocals, bass, and guitars, and keys as well sometimes. So as most of you probably already know, you could just use a software like Logic Pro, RipX, or Moises AI, I think. Those are then the isolated stems, and you can really do what you want with them. But for us guitarists, we can use them to learn songs like never before, where it really feels like you can connect with the actual instrumentalist who played on the original, using a few simple tricks to make it stand out even more. Alright, now we're in Logic, and the thing is, we've got a track, we want to learn it, we've split the stems, but there's still too much going on, like I mentioned earlier. Well, what are we going to do? It feels like there's two harmonies on top, some chords, probably double tracked in the middle, and some lower kind of interpolated melodies on top of that as well. It really feels like spaghetti to listen to and try to untangle. To help us untangle this mess, we're going to use EQ tricks. Trick number one is boosting the high frequencies. This helps us hear lead melodies like solos or the notes that are being played individually, as well as picking detail like strumming patterns, especially when you feel that maybe an acoustic or just some rhythm guitar is buried in the mix. Okay, maybe not that much. Trick number two is boosting the mids. Sometimes it feels like those strummy patterns just don't come out in the mix, as I said. Sometimes you'll boost this and find some sort of hidden extra melodies in the song. I'm not joking. Trick number three is working with the stereo field. If you think about the person who was producing the song, they want it to sound good on a whole array of devices. That includes headphones, where you've got stereo. It gives a more 3D sound for the listener, but it's more irritating when you're a guitarist who's trying to learn that line that got buried in the mix. Often it's the case that you'll find things that are hard panned either to the left or to the right, or just a little bit more to one side than the other. That's especially apparent with older songs from the 60s, where they literally had to push things to one side to get it to work on the limited number of tracks that they had. But when you start playing with that dial that you see here, you can find a sweet spot for where a solo might be, or some additional melodies that might be on top. And now, just to finish off, as I haven't touched on this much earlier, let's talk about working out the chords. This is probably the thing that most people would jump to tabs or some sort of music sheets for, but you really don't need to, and often they're simplified or inaccurate. Tip one is learning the basic chord sounds. What you want to know for these is how they look on the fretboard and how they sound when you listen to them. They're all constructed with specific intervals in pitch, so even if they're played anywhere on the fretboard or any instrument, you'll still hear them as the same type of chord. So just as an example, we've got major and minor, and they're both constructed from a root note, a third, and a fifth. Third note in a major scale is a half step higher than in the minor scale, which is what gives it a brighter characteristic. And yeah, guitar chords look like they're, 6 notes strummed at the same time, but all of those notes are either the root, the third, and the fifth. So it's not as complicated as it may look. And of course, after that, you might want to head on to something more complicated to be more accurate, such as seventh chords, where in short, it's just the same as major or minor, but you add the seventh interval on top of that. And yeah, that might sound too complicated at first, but just learn the shape on the fretboard, what the sound is like, play around with it, move it around, and you'll be good as gold. So once we know these shapes, what these chords are, how do we actually work them out by ear? What I personally like to do is look for the root note And that can either be a lower note that just works with the chord when you play it, or a high one that just kind of sticks out. High frequencies have this property where they stand out more in the mix, so it's easier to look for that. Once you find it, try to make a major shape or a minor shape out of that. Guess the type, try the shapes with that root note, and most likely you'll stumble on the right chord. And thankfully, pop songs often only use 4 chords and maybe a change at some point. So most often, once you find that repeating pattern, you just loop it through. And it's so much more satisfying when you know that you're playing something closer to the real thing than something that's been spewed out online but sounds a little bit wrong. So yeah, learning songs by ear takes patience, but the payout is huge. Because once you learn it, you're not dependent on anyone or anything. You can just rely on your own ear to work out whatever you need. Let me know in the comments below if this helped you or if there's any tricks that you might use as well. And if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate if you leave a like to support me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.